Everyone, welcome back to another exciting adventure in podcasting and in particular world building, science fiction podcasting. I believe we're digging into today and science fiction authoring. Delighted to be talking with author Catherine Wells. Catherine, welcome to the show. Thanks so much for coming.
Well, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. You have a ready-made list of books that are out and available in places like Amazon and Jumpmaster Press. And I'll mention you have the Aztec Eagle series, which also features the book Eagle Unbound. You've been known to write in the worlds of short fiction, short science fiction, and you've received two AnLab awards. And
Right?
so people can go and check out your work pretty accessibly. Uh, what led you to this world of authoring and really interested in the science fiction influences as well?
Well, I come from a long line of storytellers, so storytelling is just part of my DNA. And I discovered at an early age that I enjoyed writing short stories. My first exposure to the idea that I could write short stories was when I was in grade school, and my older brother came home with a piece that he had written for a class assignment that was to write a short story. And I just thought that was terrific. And so thought, well, I'll write one of it. So I did. And of course, it was basically a copy of his. I changed some of the details here and there to make it look like it was my own work. But that was kind of my start getting going that way. And as I was in elementary school and junior high, I discovered Robert Heinlein's YA fiction and just was caught up. I loved it.
Yeah. Heinlein had such a great ability to weave worlds and then make social commentary, sometimes socio-political commentary, thinking about Starship Troopers, which of course was made into a bombastic film, but just a fascinating book for sure.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, and I discovered I had mostly been exposed to these YA novels. That was what was in our school library, and so when I was graduating from high school, I as a gift to one of my classmates, I found a current Robert Heinlein novel that I gave to him and didn't realize that there were adult novels as well as YA novels. And the one that I gave him, A Stranger in a Strange Land. And
Mhm.
when I got around to reading it myself, I thought, oh, what did he think? I gave him this kind of novel. I
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
17.
It works. It works, right? Like the science fiction invitation. Yeah, absolutely. And that's a rather dense book. That's quite a volume, Stranger in a Strange Land. Yeah. Now, building the journey of your own books, what is that like? Not only crafting one, but a series with the third book now released.
Yeah, I tend to write in a large scope. And
Mhm.
the first two books in the series, Aztec Eagle and Crystal Desert, were originally one novel, which it just became too lengthy for e-publishing and so forth. So I was able to divide it into two pieces and do it that way. It's um, building a world. You have to draw from what you know. And I started this series. I had made a trip with my family and some friends to Rocky Point, Mexico, Puerto Penasco, out on the Gulf of Cortez, there, Sea of Cortez, and encountered a young fella on the beach, maybe 8, 10 years old, strolling around with a box of trinkets that he was then selling to the tourists on the beach, whatever he could sell, whatever he could get for those. And I was just sort of enchanted by this notion of this young fellow selling these trinkets on the beach. So I took that as the basis for my character in the Aztec Eagle series. This kid who is hustling tourists on the beach and encounters a captain in the Peacekeeper Pilot Corps
Um,
who inspires in him a desire to fly jet aircraft, and also discovers that he has a psionic gift. That his ability to do remote viewing is just kind of off the charts. So that's the combination that makes Enrique who he is, and gives him his goal and his drive.
yeah. Uh, I love the concepts and the way that you bring kind of Aztec lore together with kind of the technological science fiction, just based on the premise alone. Some really interesting features there. I've always been fascinated with ancient cultures and some of those elements as well.
Yeah, that's a theme you'll find a lot in my work. The first book I ever sold, called "The Earth Is All That Lasts," from Del Rey Press, um, featured an ancient, well, a primitive civilization, let's say that was coexisting with a more advanced technological culture, and the conflicts that come up, and the moral questions of, okay, what's how much information do we give to the primitive culture, and is it right to dump technology on them, and that it turned into a trilogy, and so I used that basis, and going on, you'll find that in a number of my works, this uh, juxtaposition between the primitive or the less advanced cultures and the more technically advanced culture, and discovering along the way that people are still people. Does make a difference, technologically advanced or living in more primitive conditions. We're all still just human beings.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I know that there must be a fair amount of research, digging that goes into that. Curious about that, and then how you go about the process of revision, which is always its own process as well.
Yeah, the research is, it surprised me. I thought when I started writing science fiction that would be less research than doing historical fiction, which is my other interest. And I found out very quickly that was not true. So with the first of the trilogy, the Coconino trilogy, I did a lot of research on Pueblo cultures, what
Hmm.
we know of them, and then with the Aztec Eagle series now, you have to keep up on technology. And from the time I started writing this series till the time it finally got into print, uh, the cell phone was invented, and a few other things that I had to go like, whoops, wait, uh, we have to go back and account for some of these things. And also the research, since I am not native Spanish speaker, and I'm here in Arizona, which is near the border, but I don't live in that culture south of the border, so I had to do some research into that, and
Hmm.
then I got to develop an entire new planet called, very creatively, Alpha. Uh, and this is a terraformed world. So I had to research terraforming, and what kinds of things would it take to start terraforming a world.
Yeah. How does one go about building a planet?
Yeah, that's, and you have to basically start at the microscopic level. Well, you need certain conditions to begin with, oxygen, water, those kinds of basic things. But then it's like, well, when you start with microbes, you have to start with microbes and then start introducing other things. But you have to have the plankton in the ocean, and the algae, so that you have some basic biological forms to start with, and then you start building from there.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. No, I'd mentioned revision there because I know that writing is always a process. That's something I try to get across to my students. And there's sort of this myth that writing just comes to the page. So I'm curious about your process of engaging that way as well.
Oh, yeah. Uh, Writing is not just a gift. Writing is also a craft.
Hmm.
You have to learn how to do it. It took me years to figure, and I did it backwards. I started with novels, and then from there went to short stories because I just couldn't figure out short stories. I didn't.
Hmm.
I couldn't figure out what made some work and some not work. But novels, I read a lot of novels, and I would sit there and say, okay, I like what this author did. How did he do it? What are the tools that he's using to shape and craft this? I learned about writing a hook. Uh, Again, from Heinlein, who has, as far as I'm concerned, the best opening of a book ever. One word, Doc. And from there, like, okay, wait, now here he doesn't start at the beginning of the scene. He kind of jumps into the middle where something's going on, and then he goes back and fills in the background on how we got to this point. So these are techniques that I had to learn before I could finally put together a novel that eventually I sent off to a publisher. Back in the days when you sent paper novel, paper
Hmm.
manuscripts off to the publisher and then waited by the mailbox for 6 months for a response. Uh, and the response came back and said, well, we like your book and are interested in possibly publishing it, but we have some concerns and we'd like to know how you would address these concerns before we offer you a contract. And there followed 2 pages of concerns, different items listed, and how it. So I did up about, I think it was about 20 pages of how I would handle this, how I would change that, and sent those off to the publisher. And then based on that, they did offer me a contract. So that was, and then I had to make all those changes. And
Yeah.
it was interesting though, as I was reading through the things, I'm like, oh yeah, that will make it better. I had a really great editor there at Del Rey, and he helped shape my work by making suggestions, not by writing it for me, not by saying, well, you should say it like this, but by saying, how would you fix this? I see this as a problem. How would you fix it? And he let me fix it, and that was a terrific experience in editing. And to this day, when I write a novel, I put the draft together, and then I have to put it away and come back and look at it again, and say, oh, okay, wait, I've got some continuity issues here, and this particular plot device doesn't work, and this piece of dialogue rings false. So you need that kind of distance from your own work to do some successful editing. Another good thing that I do is I try to find beta readers who will
Mhm.
read the manuscript for me when I think it's about ready to go to the publisher. I say, read this and tell me, poke holes in it. Tell me where it doesn't work. It's hard to find good beta readers who will give you honest feedback because, gee, I love you. I love it. I think it's terrific. It's nice to hear, but it's not helpful in crafting the novel.
Uh, how did your connection with Jumpmaster Press begin?
Actually, I belong to a Facebook group that has open calls and submission invitations in it. And they had put a notice in there that they were looking for authors. This is a small press out of the southeastern US. And basically, 2 guys who had been self publishing after leaving the big leagues and say, I can do this myself, and
Mhm.
were doing well enough going around to conventions and selling their books. They said, we should do this for other writers too. And so they put out this invitation, and I responded with the Aztec Eagle story, which I'd been trying to market uh, for about 10 years. Uh, and they were interested in it and wanted to do it. So I was delighted to join forces and become part of the Jumpmaster Press group.
Anything that you'd like readers to know about the third entry in the series as it's come together?
The third one, okay. The first two we marketed as YA fiction because the character was young. He starts out, he's like 5 or 6 years old, and at the end of the first book, he's 17, and at the end
Hmm.
of the second book, now he's coming up on 21. So in the third book, he's a little older, he's a little wiser, and some of the things he's dealing with are, you know, if you consider that YA fiction technically is 18 to 25, then this is right up there for that age group. Uh, some people still are thinking of YA fiction as junior high and maybe high school, and that's perhaps not accurate anymore in the way the term is used in the industry.
Anything in particular that you keep in mind when you're crafting a younger protagonist like that?
Wow. It helps to remember your own experiences. It helps if you've raised a couple of kids and watched them and what they struggle with. Uh,
Hmm.
but when it comes down to it, they're the same struggles we have as adults. Just as adults, we have a little more experience to help us deal with these problems. They're
Hmm.
new to teenagers and to young adults, and the first time someone you care deeply about betrays you, that's hard, and we all remember that, and so that
That
resonates.
in mind, where might we go and find your work?
You can find it through Jumpmaster Press, the most recent series. If you go to Amazon, you'll not only find the one from Jumpmaster, you'll find the previous books. I actually have 8 novels in print right now. Arc Manor Press has reissued my earlier novels, the ones that were through Del Rey, and Rock Books was the other publisher that I had worked through. It's a little more difficult to find any of my short stories and novellas, but the novels are available on Amazon.
Any social media spaces, convention spaces, or anything like that that you'd like to mention?
Uh, I do have a Facebook page. You can look me up. It's Catherine.wells.733. And of course, there are 24 different ways to spell Catherine. So if you know how to spell Catherine like Catherine the Great, that's the way I spell it. So Catherine.wells.733.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, Catherine, many thanks for the conversation. Always glad to talk with you as you're crafting worlds and happy writing. And I hope that lots of folks out there engage in some happy reading as well.